Conducting a 360-degree leadership assessment survey is a great way to discover areas for personal development. I'll explain that and demonstrate a tool that I use to assess myself in this video. Hello, I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. This video is being sponsored by Sparrow, who contacted me to review their software, and I thought it would be a great way to demonstrate how to use a 360-degree leadership assessment to use as a tool for personal development, especially at the leadership level where it's typically used, but you can use this survey for any position. Now, Sparrow makes software not just for 360-degree surveys, but for all types of surveys. One of them is to create or feedback on the customer experience at every touch point, the employee experience. So you could do surveys to tap into the employee level of satisfaction, how they perceive the organization. You could do surveys for product, and you could have also offline surveys. So there's all types of tools that they provide. And I'm going to put a link in the description of this video to their product line or their software. You could also run a free trial if you'd like. Now, I used it for what interested me, which is the 360-degree assessment or survey. I prefer using the word survey than assessment. Assessment sometimes is associated or often with testing somebody, but a 360-degree tool is a development tool. So it's really designed to help somebody understand themselves better, get feedback from all around them. That's why we call it a 360-degree feedback tool. So typically, the leader will assess themselves, the boss will assess them, their peers, and their direct reports, the team members. And from that, you could see patterns. And I'm going to walk you through screenshots of the reports. But to begin with, I just want to say that originally I was going to plug in my own competencies and use them to self-assess myself and have others assess me, give feedback. But when I logged into the Survey Sparrow tool, I saw that they already had leadership competencies ready to go. And so I kept it simple. I used their competencies that seemed to be quite well designed, simple, but covered the most important components of leadership. And I wrote an article that accompanies this video where I list those, and they are leadership skills, communication skills, team skills, organizational skills, creativity skills, interpersonal skills, and organizational alignment. So those are the 7 sections or clusters of skills, and within each of those there's 2 to 5 questions that people rate their perception of the skill of that leader or manager. So when you log into the portal for Survey Sparrow, you have a number of options. You can start by using one of the templates to create a survey. They're up here. And you have different categories: business, employee, education. When I click on employee, you have the employee engagement survey, manager feedback. What I like is that at the end of each section, there's a place where you could type in your reasons for scoring the way you did, and I think this is very valuable feedback. I'll show you that when we get to the report. So, like in leadership skills, exhibits leadership qualities in their current role at the company, at the organization, encourages teamwork and collaboration across various teams. And of course, again, you can modify these. You can modify the scoring level. This one, the default is 1 to 5. Some people prefer having just 4. That forces people to score other than the mid-range, which is 3. But I kept mine at 5. I just went with the default settings. Then you add your invites, who you want to take part in this survey. I used myself. Of course, you need to have for 360 yourself, my boss, who's my partner, my direct report, and a colleague. Now, one thing I should mention that's really important when you conduct this type of survey is that you want to make sure that there's a high level or a good level of trust in the organization to do this, because you don't want to create animosities, or if somebody gives a negative or low score to that manager or leader, that there could be repercussions, person taking revenge, trying to figure out who scored them that low. So again, it's not a test, it's not an assessment, it's a development tool to help the person better understand themselves, but you do want a good level of trust so that the person will take the feedback in a constructive way and use it as a tool for development. So the results I already have loaded here was the report that got generated. So the first part shows you the number of participants. As I mentioned, there was 4 in total, including myself. The summary of each section. So leadership skills, I scored 4.3 out of 5. The communication, 3.7 out of 5, a little low. The lowest was organizational skills, 3.1. That's something I need to work on that I already knew. So there you have it for each section, the summary. It gives you also a gap analysis, what they call a radar chart, so you could see by color how you were scored. The outside line was my manager, who scored me the highest. The reportee was a bit lower. My peer was a bit higher than the reportee, and myself was kind of almost the lowest or in line with my reportee. So I didn't overrate myself. The next section gives you your strengths. I had 5 sections were strengths, and areas of improvement is the organizational skills, and which is where I also scored myself the lowest. Hidden strengths are areas where others scored you higher than you scored yourself, which means that this is kind of like giving you positive feedback as to what you're good at and may not realize enough. So you want to keep working on that, keep developing that. The blind spots is where you may have rated yourself higher than others, which means that you weren't aware that you were out of line with how others perceived you, but for me there was none. So it says you know yourself well. Then it goes into the detailed feedback where you see the comments that people made for each section. So like for leadership skills, I wrote great. This is for myself, great, but can always improve. My peer, Steve, is great at leading a team while leaving room for the input of others. My manager scored me a 5. She wrote, "That's what I observe." Reportee provides guidance and direction when needed. So I just want to scroll here to the organizational skills. This is where my manager scored me the lowest at 2 on the 3 questions. And I scored myself actually 3. So there's not a huge gap. I wrote tend to overload myself, and my manager gave me an interesting feedback here about managing my time and planning ahead. When you go down to the end, this is where there's room to type in ideas for personal development. Now, the boss would typically enter this. I did it for myself, and this is where you want to then sit down with the person and discuss the results and go over it. So that's really the important part. It's what are you going to do with this information? How are you going to use this to help you develop, in this case, to be a better leader? For me, it's about my organizational skills, and this is why coaching is really so important when it comes to doing any of these types of surveys. Not just neglecting the discussion afterwards. It's kind of like training. When you do a training program, it's the debrief after the learning, and then the follow-up is really where you get the highest return on investment. Now, one method you could use for giving feedback is the KSS method. I've talked about this in past videos. It's what the person should keep doing, what they should stop doing, and what they should start doing. So maybe like in my case with the organizational skills, I should stop putting too many things on my agenda or on my to-do list and really focus in on some key things, and I guess start setting aside better time, more quality time for the things that are really important. And I've actually already started to do that. And then using my goal planning worksheet, you could start with set one goal or develop one new habit. And now you have something, if you're the boss, and if you've done this with one of your managers or all your managers, now you have 1 or 2 specific things that you could have them work on and coach them on for them to develop and become better leaders, become better managers. And the payoff to you is that it'll free up your time because they're stepping up and becoming those better leaders and managers. So it's a really great development tool that everyone should have an opportunity to get feedback on their skill set for their particular role, whether it's a leader, manager, or an employee. Of course, again, I want to mention there needs to be a good level or a high level of trust in the organization, within the team, across teams. If you're having peers do the assessment or survey on somebody, just that you want to make sure people feel safe in giving their input and that nothing's going to come back on them. And this will then serve as a really great development tool. So good luck if you plan on doing this. Again, I'll put a link to the Survey Sparrow software where you can go and do a test run, do a free trial on it. There's other related videos. I mentioned the one on the KSS method. I'll put a link to that as well, and to the one on doing a paper-based training needs analysis. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on notifications to get news of new videos. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.